Hi, I'm Raylyn Worcester, and this is Spreading the Word. That's word with a capital W, as in the written word, the Bible, and the Word made flesh, Jesus Christ. Today I'm going to be reading to you from my mini novel, Fifth Time's the Charm. So far in our story, the woman the story is about has married and divorced the first time with Brad, has married and divorced the second time with Grady, and her third husband, Robert, has just passed away. How is she going to get to number 4? Well, that's what you're about to find out. So grab something to drink, make yourself comfortable, and get ready for Fifth Time's the Charm, hiatus between third time and fourth time. Everything after that happened in a daze, in a fog. She switched her brain to autopilot and without feeling or emotion did the things she needed to do. There was a lot that needed done, and all of it right away. Her mom was a godsend at this time. Everyone wanted to come over and offer their condolences, but she honestly just couldn't function. Her mom ran interference and made excuses and sent well-wishers away so she didn't have to deal with their feelings and emotions while she had no control over her own. Jody handled everything she couldn't without question or complaint and was there for anything she needed. That was when she went from being just a mom to also being her very best friend. She would never lose that status in her daughter's life. Because Robert had died so young and the cause of death wasn't readily apparent, the state required an autopsy. She was pretty sure she knew what happened. A couple of weeks ago, she picked up Robert's OxyContin bottle to find it half empty. They'd only gotten the prescription 3 days previously. "Robert, these are half gone. Are you selling them?" she had asked. He looked at her like she was crazy. "No, of course not," he'd answered. "Well, then where are they?" He looked perplexed for a moment, then his face cleared and he slowly said, "The Valium makes my brain fuzzy. Sometimes I can't remember if I took my pain pill or not. I still hurt, so I figure I didn't, and I take it again." He paused, thinking, that may have happened a few times. "Honey, you can't," she replied in alarm. "You might overdose." His face crumpled. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. You're my world, the last thing I'd want." She ran over and wrapped him in her arms. "It's okay," she soothed. "I will get a pill organizer and label it with the times you are to take your medicine. You look at the clock when you need one, and if it's not time, you take some Tylenol, okay?" He nodded and smiled. "I love you." "I love you too, honey." She had done as she'd suggested. Maybe his brain was too fuzzy to register the times on the pill organizer. Maybe, she shook her head, they would know soon enough. She had to meet Mama and Papa at the mortuary. Her mom went too for moral support. Robert would be cremated. They picked out an urn and some keepsake vessels for his ashes. They scheduled a memorial service and composed an obituary. His parents agreed to pay for all of this. She was thankful. She had no idea how expensive a death could be, but she was going to find out, and would have plenty of other expenses to worry about. When she got back home, she walked on the boardwalk Robert had made for her to the front door, flanked by the rose bushes he had carefully chosen, planted, and tended, that were full of healthy green leaves but had never bloomed. Inside, everything she saw contained evidence of their life together. It was overwhelming. She sat on the floor in the hallway and bawled. When she couldn't cry another tear, she got up and slowly removed framed photos from the wall. She would put them away until they were easier to look at, and then would put them up once more. She walked into their bedroom. Oh, God, this was so hard. She went to the closet and gently ran her hands over his clothes. Some still smelled like him. She stopped when her hand hit something solid among the cloth. She pulled it out into the light. It was a 2-foot-tall Valentine card to her. Valentine's Day was less than a week away. He'd been hiding it to give to her at the appropriate time. It was signed, "Yours forever, Robert." Okay, that was enough. She put the card back in the closet. She would deal with all of his stuff another time. The next day, a knock came at the door. She opened it to find a policeman on her doorstep. "Can I help you?" she asked. "Ma'am, I have your husband's death certificate, toxicology and autopsy report," he answered. "May I come in?" Her brow furrowed. "I thought those things got mailed." She shrugged, opened the door, and stood back so he could enter. They sat and he handed her the papers, giving her a few minutes to look them over. Preliminary cause of death, overdose of medication. She sighed, just as she thought. Preliminary cause of death? Why preliminary? I thought you said the autopsy and toxicology had all been completed, she asked. The officer replied, "That's why I'm here, ma'am. They were unable to determine if the overdose was accidental or not. Ma'am, could your husband have committed suicide?" She felt like she'd been slapped. The horror and outrage must have shown on her face. "There's no way," she said in her husband's defense. He was a Christian. He believed suicide was a sin. He was happy for someone in so much pain. He praised God every day. Does that sound like someone ready to commit suicide? She nearly screamed. The officer looked at her with pity but said, "I have to ask. Couldn't he have been in so much pain he just couldn't take any more and deliberately took a handful of pills?" She jumped up and ran to the closet. She brought back the card and thrust it at him. "He wouldn't have done that before he had a chance to give me this," she said confidently. The officer nodded. "Thank you, ma'am. I know this was hard. I will tell the medical examiner that investigation has revealed official cause of death to be accidental overdose. You will get the final official documents in the mail in a week or two. Those are yours to keep. I will let myself out." The police officer wasn't the only one looking for someone to blame, it turned out. As they were leaving the funeral home the day before, Mama had angrily said, "We are going to sue that pain management specialist. He should have known those two drugs wouldn't play nice together." She had answered just as angrily, "You will not. So help me, if you do, you will never see me or Gerald again." Dan's face crumpled at the thought. He and Gerald had become best buds over the years, fishing and playing and just hanging out together. She continued, "That doctor was the only one who desperately tried to keep the pain from consuming your son. He was the only one who could help him at all after the surgery. You will not repay his kindness by suing him." She meant it. She was adamant. Dan gave her a hug. He knew both his girls were hurting unbearably, as he was. He looked at his wife and said, "We will let it go. It wouldn't bring him back. What good would it do?" She simply turned and walked to the car. Dan would have his hands full when they got home, but she was glad she had stood her ground. She was right on this. No one was to blame. Robert was gone, and that was that. She shouldn't have been surprised then at the memorial service when she went to give Mama a hug that she pulled away. "I love you," she said, "but every time I see you without Sonny," her pet name for her son, "I remember why he isn't beside you. It's too hard. I need you to not come around after this, okay?" "The kids?" she asked. Dan said, "We've discussed this. As hard as it is, we just need some time to ourselves, okay?" She understood. "How much time?" "I don't know," Mama answered. "We will call you." They never did. She wouldn't see either of them except rarely in passing at Walmart or the grocery store until Dan's funeral 20 years later. That she had to go to represent his son who couldn't be at his dad's funeral. There she hugged Mama, and this time Mama hugged her back and held on as if she would never let go. But something magical happened the day of the memorial service, too. As she walked out of the house that morning, she noticed one sterling rose on the rose bush Robert had purchased, planted, and cared for. Until this moment, nothing had bloomed. Her favorite was the sterling rose, a shade of lavender that resembled sterling silver. Now that he was gone, Robert was still giving her roses. It was just the reminder that he would love her forever that she needed to get through what promised to be a difficult day. 2 weeks after losing Robert, she received a call from the lawyer. "Good news," he said excitedly. "The disability has been approved." "It's too late," she replied woodenly. "Robert died." The lawyer was quiet for several seconds before he answered with real emotion in his voice. "I'm so sorry for your loss. I got to know him quite well these last 2 years. He was a good man. But it's not too late. You will get a widow's benefit. It won't come immediately, but you will receive it. I will file the papers right away." She thanked him and he disconnected the call. She had to go back to work before she was emotionally ready. The bills came pouring in from every imaginable source. She had to pay for the paramedics that came, for the ambulance staying an extra hour until she arrived from work, for body storage. They actually called it storage until the autopsy could be done. And of course, she had all her regular bills, and she was not paid for her time off. For the first few days, she drove home after work, and upon seeing Robert's truck in the drive, got excited. "Robert's home!" Then she remembered he wasn't, and wouldn't be again, and became unbearably sad. This happened several days in a row, and she knew her sanity depended upon it not happening again. She couldn't bear the thought of selling his truck. It was such a huge part of him. So she asked her mom to keep it at her house so she wouldn't have to see it every day. That helped. The emotional toll of her loss and abundance of weeping wore her out. She was tired all the time. Twice she nodded off driving to work while it was still dark out. The rumble strip on the side of the road woke her. This frightened her enough that she knew she needed to make a change. Not long after, she and Gerald found an apartment near the resort where she worked. It was right next to Catalina Foothills High School. They made the move to Tucson, and when Gerald expressed an interest in attending the high school next door, she agreed and enrolled him there the next day. Time and distance did their job, and slowly the pain of losing Robert subsided. Several events that happened in 2000 and 2001 helped greatly with this. First, because her home was now only a few miles from work, she took the opportunity to work some double shifts. She worked from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., then 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. She was entitled to an hour lunch break on each shift and used that time to run home and check on Gerald and spend about 30 minutes with him during each shift. He was almost 15, and she felt he was mature enough to stay home alone while she worked. The extra money helped with the extra bills and moving expenses, and the extra work kept her mind and body occupied and gave her purpose. In December of 2000, the widow's benefit came in. She would receive $750 a week for the rest of her life, or until she remarried. It was almost a year since Robert had passed, and for the first time she didn't feel stressed. The money took pressure off and allowed her to have some fun. She gave each of her brothers and her mom $100 for Christmas, just because she could. She bought herself some things she always wanted, including a floor-length leather trench coat. She wrapped them and put them under their Christmas tree. On Christmas morning, she read the tag aloud, "To me, from me." Then she'd open the gift and exclaim, "Just what I wanted. How did I know?" Early in 2001, her car started giving her trouble. She decided to buy a new car. She found a 2001 Camaro convertible. It was a rental return, and since it had miles on it, it had to be sold as a used car and was marked down several $1,000s. She never dreamed she could own a car like this, and only test drove it because every time Robert had seen a convertible on the road, he would comment, "I can see Mama in that car." When she drove the car with the top down, she felt the wind in her hair and the sun on her face, and she felt truly alive for the first time since her husband died. She decided that with the widow's benefit, she would be able to afford the car. As she drove off the lot, she said, "Honey, can you see Mama in this car?" In mid-2001, a year and a half after the death of her husband, she decided she would like to look at some dating sites. She wasn't sure she wanted to date, but she wanted to see what was out there. She tried several different sites and read hundreds of profiles. Most of them she found very entertaining, but nothing she would seriously entertain. Finally, there was one that intrigued her. It said, "My favorite thing to do is to drive my red convertible, nowhere in particular, with the top down." That was her favorite thing to do, and her convertible was red too. She made arrangements to meet him just to see if they had anything else in common. They met at a Starbucks 2 blocks from the restaurant. Giovanni turned out to be an Italian man, her age, with seriously gorgeous hair. He was a little chubby, but not fat, and he dressed nicely. He bought her a hot tea, and he had a coffee, and they sat and got to know each other a bit. He'd been married twice before. His family disapproved of his first wife because she was Hispanic, and their marriage couldn't survive the friction between her and his family. The second wife cheated on him and left him, so now he was single again. She shared that she had been married before too, and was a recent widow. She had a married daughter and a 15-year-old son at home. He was attentive, sweet, and polite, but the thing that endeared him to her was that when he spoke to her, his lip trembled. She was so used to overbearing, demanding, or cocky men asking her out that his nervousness was refreshing. She saw something else when she looked at Giovanni, too. A project. He lacked confidence. He'd been mistreated by his last wife. She could fix him. She decided that she would see him again. The concierge position was available at the resort where she worked. She thought she would like to apply for it. The concierge gave directions to local events and attractions, recommended restaurants, wines, etc. It sounded like fun. To prepare, she and Giovanni tried several upscale restaurants in town each week. They would order 2 of the most popular items from the menu, cut them in half, and share. He would eat all the seafood, though, and gave her his feedback. By month's end, she knew what restaurants to recommend and which weren't what they were cracked up to be, who had the best prime rib, tiramisu, etc. She and her mom also attended a wine tasting course. She learned about a wine's aroma and bouquet. She could identify fruity or woody undertones, could tell if a wine was firm or velvety, could guess its age based on its harshness, young, or silkiness, mature, and learned which wines paired with which foods. She also learned that the only wine she really liked was a Shiraz, a sweet dessert wine that didn't taste much like alcohol. She didn't get the concierge position, but she had a lot of fun trying. All of this was done on her dime, of course. Giovanni laughingly referred to her as his sugar mama once. But it wasn't a one-sided relationship. She foot the bill on most occasions, but he did things for her she couldn't do. Man stuff. He fixed things. On one occasion, she and Gerald went to a movie during monsoon season in Arizona. She always drove with the top down on her car. Otherwise, what's the point in having a convertible? And when she parked anywhere, she left it down and just locked the car and set the alarm. She had a cloth top, and if someone was going to try to steal the car, she didn't want them destroying the top to get in. It was a bright sunny day, with not a cloud in the sky when they got to the theater, but when they came out, it was raining hard. She asked a man near the door how long it had been raining. "About an hour," he said. She learned why they call them bucket seats, because they hold a lot of water. Having no towels in the car, they had to sit in puddles to drive home. When she went to put the top up, water had collected in the accordion-like folds of the fabric. As the top rose, the water rained down upon them, drenching them afresh. Not only that, but the radio played like it was possessed. It kept changing stations by itself. The controls were in the car's steering wheel, and the contacts had gotten wet. They drove over to Giovanni's place, who shop-vac the water from the cloth seats, dried them with towels, used Febreze to remove any musty smell, and painstakingly dried out the components in her steering wheel with a blow dryer. It took about 4 hours. When he was done, you'd never know the car had been through a monsoon rain. She was so grateful. In 2001, she had been elected the resort's Employee of the Year. This was a big deal because she'd been singled out from over 750 employees. The Employee of the Year got an all-expense-paid trip for two to Washington, D.C. She took her mom. They spent a week touring all the monuments, memorials, the Capitol, and the Smithsonian. They received freebies, bags of souvenirs and goodies, had lavish meals every night, and champagne and roses in their room. It all culminated in a banquet the last night for all the employees of the year from all 17 of the brand's hotels throughout the United States. There they chose one to represent the entire brand. They would be the Lowe's legend. They chose her. She had her photo taken with the CEO of Lowe's Hotels and Resorts, and it was in the newspaper. Several perks came with being Lowe's legend. One was that she could stay at any Lowe's hotel in the nation at drastically reduced prices. It was 5-star resort living at Motel 6 prices. She wanted to take advantage of this, and one weekend when Gerald was with Grady, who now lived in Phoenix, she and Giovanni drove her convertible out to Coronado Bay in California. She'd never forget the exhilarating feeling of driving with the top down on the Pacific Coast Highway, or the anxiety of driving over the Coronado Bay Bridge, which felt to her like she was driving over the St. Louis Arch, with water waiting to catch her below if she veered too close to the edge. As they were preparing for this weekend, Giovanni had been hinting around that he had something important to discuss with her while they were away. He's going to ask me to marry him, she thought. It would be the perfect romantic place to do it. They had been together a year. Imagine her disappointment when inside the 4th-floor room, looking out the window and seeing a wedding taking place in the courtyard, Giovanni leaned out the window and yelled, "Suckers!" She was mortified by his behavior, marring someone else's perfect day, and bitterly disappointed at finding out his views on marriage, and that she wouldn't be getting a proposal all in one fell swoop. It turned out the important issue he wanted to discuss with her was he wanted her and Gerald to move in with him. Absolutely not, she told him. It was true she had put God on the back burner of her life, where he simmered slowly but didn't intrude. She hadn't gone to church since Robert died, mostly due to emotional unavailability, followed by being in a new town and not taking the time or having the motivation to go church hunting. The lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life seemed to hold more sway at this point in her life than God did. And while she had taken Giovanni for a weekend at a hotel, she had to draw the line somewhere. She wouldn't live with a man she wasn't married to. Well, at least now they both knew where each stood on the marriage and cohabiting issues. A few months later, she found herself in the emergency room. For the week preceding, she had been bloated, her stomach rock hard, and had been belching constantly. She never burped, even when she needed to. It was difficult for her to do, something she'd inherited from her mom, so she knew something was wrong. That particular night, it kept her from sleeping, so she went to the ER. They did an ultrasound and discovered a mass in her abdomen the size of a grapefruit. It actually turned out to be a tumor, which had invaded one of her ovaries and had totally consumed it, growing and pushing other organs out of the way. She was admitted and prepped immediately for surgery. It was a difficult surgery, as the tumor had to be removed in 4 pieces, and she later learned that they nearly lost her on the operating table. It had been touch and go for a while. They did a complete hysterectomy while they were in there, so the issue wouldn't be able to repeat itself with the other ovary. After the surgery, she remained in the hospital for 4 days, during which she had to be helped to a bedside commode to pass blood clots as she healed. The one who never left her bedside was Giovanni. He helped her on and off the commode, cleaning her up, dealing with the mess without complaint. Such love, such dedication, she thought. And we're only dating. Okay, so maybe he wasn't keen on marriage, but he was partner material. Perhaps she would reconsider the live-in situation after all. After she completely healed and recovered, she and Gerald moved in with Giovanni. They'd been living together a few months when he asked her to marry him. If she could bend on a conviction for him, he could for her, he said. And like that, they were engaged. So now you know how fourth time has come to be. Stay tuned for the next part as we see the wedding with Giovanni in fourth time. If you are enjoying this story, please remember to share it with others, to like and to subscribe, and in this way, you help spread the word. Thank you. God bless.